Part 55. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 541. Chapter 541. The evil-minded Zhao family. Fan Qinjiao was very happy when he heard that Sun Kentung had woken up. Seeing that Mrs. Sun was about to kneel on the ground, Fan Qinjiao quickly stopped her and said, "This is what I should do." "Mrs. Sun, please don't be so polite." Mrs. Sun nodded her head hurriedly, crying and laughing at the same time. "It is really God's blessing that made my little girl so lucky to become friends with the crown princess. I think that the one in my family who didn't live up to expectations was still against the crown princess. However, I didn't expect the crown princess to be so careless about past grudges." When she thought of Zhao Jianjia, Mrs. Sun's wife became very angry. Fortunately, his daughter is not stupid, otherwise how could the crown princess be standing here today? Fan Qinjiao is willing to hold on to the past. I can hardly remember the past. Hearing this, Mrs. Sun's wife was so moved that she was speechless. She didn't know how much thick incense the Sun family burned in her previous life, so she could be so lucky to marry the crown prince in this life. Mr. Sun saw that a quarter of an hour had passed and the crown princess was still blocked outside the door. He couldn't help but remind her, "What's the point of blocking the crown princess outside at night?" Mrs. Sun's wife hurriedly invited Fan Qinjiao in. At this time, Kong Tongding has not yet fallen asleep. If I had known that the crown princess would come to visit, I don't know how happy I would have left. Master Sun saw his wife leading the crown princess to the backyard, so he consciously went to the main hall. Walking all the way to the backyard, the more Mrs. Sun thought about it, the more glad she was that her daughter was not too blind. As she thought about it, she naturally thought of the Zhao family who used to use their daughter as a gun. As soon as the Zhao family was mentioned, Mrs. Sun's wife couldn't stop talking. "The crown princess doesn't know, but the Zhao family secretly inquired about the Hua family some time ago. I heard that in order to talk to the old lady of the Hua family, a lot of connections were involved and a lot of money was spent. Mrs. Sun's family is the know-it-all about this main city. No matter how secretive the Zhao family's affairs are, they can't hide it from her ears." Fan Qinjiao thought for a long time before he remembered which Zhao family it was. "I wonder what the Zhao family is thinking about so much." Mrs. Sun's wife said, "Oops, what could it be? It's just that she is obsessed with the eldest young master of the Hua family." Fan Qinjiao frowned after hearing this. People like Zhao Jianjia, who are full of calculations and interests, cannot do things they love. At present, Zhao Jianjia is obsessed with her brother, which may be inseparable from her position as the crown princess. Even though she hasn't stepped into the royal family yet, people from the Ministry of Etiquette come to Hua's house every now and then to pay homage. Faced with the Ministry of Etiquette's thoughtfulness and attentiveness, anyone who is not blind can see that sooner or later, the matter of becoming a crown princess will be a certainty. The Zhao family's official position is not low, but it is not high enough to support the prince. Since there is no hope of becoming a dragon, the Zhao family wants to throw their daughter into the Hua family. Once the prince successfully ascends the throne, the Zhao family's daughter will be the sister-in-law of the future queen. This honor is enough to make the Zhao family rise to prominence. Fan Qinjiao narrowed his eyes slightly as he figured out all the calculations in the bones of the Zhao family. This Zhao family is actually making good calculations. I'd like to trouble Mrs. Sun's family and help me find out who in the main city has trouble with Mrs. Zhao's family. The more pointed the needle is, the better. Fan Qinjiao is not the kind of soft persimmon who just waits for others to take advantage of him. Since the Zhao family is still evil, she doesn't mind giving the Zhao family a fatal blow. Still thinking about being her sister-in-law? Don't even dream about it. Mrs. Sun's wife was so shrewd that she immediately realized that the crown princess was planning to take action, and she quickly agreed, "Don't worry, crown princess, I will investigate this matter thoroughly." Not to mention that the Sun family owes the crown princess such a huge favor now. Personal grudges alone can make the Zhao family unhappy. Even if MRS Sun family voluntarily shortens her life by 1 year, she will be happy. When they arrived at Sun Kentung's yard, MRS Sun's wife personally helped Fan Kinjao lift the curtain, then turned around and left. In the room, it was Sun Kentung who was lying on the bed and turning over. He cried when he saw Fan Kinjao entering the door. Fan Kinjao hurriedly walked over and sat on the edge of the bed. He wanted to say a few words of comfort, but before she could say anything, Sun Kentung stood up and threw herself into her arms. The one who cries is more unrestrained. Fan Kinjao. Being too excited can easily harm your body, it's true. Fan Kinjao was actually feeling sour in his heart, but it was all washed away by Sun Kentung's bursting tears. Sun Kentung also knew that she shouldn't cry, but she just couldn't control it. After hugging Fan Kinjao and crying and laughing for a long time, he gradually calmed down. I listened to my mother. I really want to thank you and Jing Chen this time. If you two hadn't arrived in time, I'm afraid that by now I've already married that beast as my wife. As Sun Kentung spoke, tears began to well up again. Fan Kinjao held her hand and quickly diverted her attention. What happened in the attic that day? When it came to Ma Hongshun, Sun Kentung really couldn't cry anymore and was so angry that he gritted his teeth. That man sneaked up to the attic with me and insisted that I agree to marry him. If I didn't marry him, he would say I hate being poor and love being rich, so why should I marry him if he is poor? Fan Kinjao nodded to express his understanding. The idea that I am poor and you deserve to take care of me is indeed Ma Hongshun's style. I just didn't expect that he was not only poor but also ruthless. When I didn't agree, he rushed over and slapped me a few times, and also wanted to threaten me. Am I the kind of person who gives in? Two of my friends, one is one of the 6 princesses, is the future crown princess. I will be afraid of him. Sun Kentung spoke confidently, but Fan Kinjao felt heavy-hearted after hearing it. She didn't know that Ma Hongshun also beat Sun Kentung. It was because she acted lightly. If she had known earlier, she should have been more ruthless towards Ma Hongshun. When Sun Kentung saw that Fan Kinjao was silent, he knew that she was distressed. He shook her hand and said with a smile, "It's all over now. I'm doing well. How are you and Jing Chen doing lately?" Fan Kinjao didn't want Sun Kentung to worry, so he didn't talk about what happened to him. Instead, he told the 6th prince that he was going to be a concubine and Zhang Yulan's identity. Although the prince's marriage to a concubine is not as grand as marrying a main concubine, the main city is so big that it cannot be hidden. Sun Kentung was dumbfounded. Is there really such a shameless person? Then Jing Chen's life will be difficult from now on. Fan Kinjao smiled and said, Jing Chen is not as weak as you think. Don't worry. If Zhang Yulan really wants to bully Jing Chen, I won't agree. But you should get better soon and follow me, then I will support Jing Chen together. It's just Zhang Yulan, she hasn't taken it seriously yet. Sun Kentung nodded, and just as he was about to say something, there was a commotion outside. Sun Kentung was stunned for a moment, but he was not curious. He seemed to be used to it. On the other hand, Fan Kinjao looked at Sun Kentung's reaction and couldn't help but wonder, what's going on? Sun Kentung shook his head, not wanting Fan Kinjao to make trouble too. The maid who happened to be guarding the yard hurriedly entered the door and said, Miss, the master of the Ma family is making trouble again. Hearing this, Fan Kinjao understood even if Sun Kentung didn't say it. It turned out to be the Ma family. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 542. Chapter 542. The humiliation of blocking the door. Ma Hongshun was sent to the Yamen to eat in prison, but Ma Hongshun's father came to make fun of him all day long. The master of the Sun family is not a high-ranking official, but he still relies on his salary to make a living, so he cannot do anything excessive to an old man. Relying on this, Mr. Ma's family came to the door of Sun's house every day to yell and curse. Just like this, the people in the main city now know that Sun Kongtong had an engagement with the Ma family when he was in trouble. Now that Sun Kongtong is well, he has turned his back on the family and sent his son to prison, just to break off the engagement. The wife of the Sun family cannot let others slander her daughter like this and go out to argue with her in person. However, Mr. Ma's family is basically a scoundrel in the market. He either sits on the ground and makes a fuss, or continues to slander her with nonsense. If he really can't defeat Mrs. Sun's family, he just yells. Mrs. Sun's wife argued with Mr. Ma's family for several days, but they couldn't explain anything clearly. As a result, more people will watch the excitement. Mrs. Sun's wife also didn't dare to go out and argue easily, for fear that if the trouble continued, her daughter would really be unable to get married. When Sun Kongtong talked about this, he was almost furious. In my last life, my ancestral graves were probably covered in smoke, but in this life I have been entangled with such scoundrels. If I really can't get married, I will definitely marry Ma. The whole family dies together. Fan Kinjao. Really, we haven't reached the point of dying together. However, Fan Kinjao did not expect that the Ma family could really do things to such a shameless level. Since you are a rogue, just use rogue methods to deal with it. Fan Kinjao stood up and walked to the door, took off the sign hanging from his waist, and handed it to the maid outside the door. Take my sign and go to Mr. Sun's house and tell him that I want to report to the official. The maid didn't dare to delay, so she quickly took the sign and left. Sun Kongtong knew that Fan Kinjao wanted to help, so he hurriedly said, "Kinjao, I already owe you too much. You really don't need to do anything more, just let the Ma family make trouble." Fan Kinjao walked back to the bed. "Since we are friends, there is no need to talk about any debts." As he spoke, he opened the cabinet next to the bed, took out a set of clothes and handed them over. Sun Kongtong was stunned. "What are you doing?" Fan Kinjao blinked slyly. "Of course I want you to be very angry." Sun Kongtong knew that Fan Kinjao would never trick anyone, so she changed her clothes and walked out of the yard accompanied by Fan Kinjao. This was the first time she walked out of her yard after being disturbed by the Ma family during this period. Courtyard. Smelling the fresh air outside, Sun Kongtong's nose began to feel sour. Fan Kinjao smiled and held her arm. "The air will always be so fresh in the future." Hearing this, Sun Kongtong nodded sharply, suppressing his sadness. Kinjao said he would do it, he will do it. Fan Kinjao accompanied Sun Kongtong out of the yard, and as he got closer to the gate, he could hear the movement outside the gate more clearly. At this time, outside the Sun family's door, the Ma family master was shouting and scolding. There were already a lot of people around, and even if it was dark and windy, they couldn't stop them from watching the excitement. Mrs. Sun and Mr. Sun stood behind the door of their house, their faces darkened, obviously very angry. "You Sun family members, come out. Don't hide in the house and be a coward. Since you have done something to frame my son, why don't you dare to confront me now? Don't think that I don't know what you are trying to do. In fact, you just want to burn the bridge. From what I'm saying, the Miss Sun family is probably not seducing my son, otherwise my son will never be tricked by your Sun family. Oh my God, you open your eyes and see. My son is wronged." The yelling and cursing outside the door continued, which was harsh and unpleasant. It's no wonder that the two elders of the Sun family look ugly. Whose daughter can laugh when her reputation is slandered? Fan Kinjao, who was walking towards the main entrance with Sun Kongtong, heard such swearing, and was not surprised by the dirty deeds Ma Hongshun had done previously. With such a vulgar father in front of him, how can his son be any better? When Mrs. Sun saw Fan Kinjao coming over with her daughter, she hurriedly greeted her, but the shouting and cursing at the door disturbed the crown princess. "It's all my fault." The crown princess was frightened. "Why don't the crown princess go to me first, rest in the courtyard for a while, and after the people leave, I will personally apologize to the crown princess." Sun Kongtong felt extremely uncomfortable seeing her mother like this. "This matter is not my fault at all. Why should my mother take all the responsibility on herself?" Mrs. Sun's wife took her daughter's hand and sighed helplessly. "Otherwise, what else do you want? Do you still want to go out and argue with that kind of people? Have you forgotten that you have suffered a loss before? Be obedient and take care of the princess quickly. Leave." Sun Kentang was so angry that she was trembling all over, but seeing her mother's humiliation and begging for peace, she felt extremely distressed. "Can't we just let that shameless person bully our Sun family like this?" Seeing that his daughter was stubborn, Mr. Sun scolded her in a cold voice. "Is there anything in this world that can really be explained clearly? If you take a step back, the sea and the sky will be brighter, but it is not a safe solution." Fan Kinjao laughed when he heard this. "I've never heard of taking a step back and kicking the nose and face, but it's not uncommon. If you keep taking a step back, I'm afraid the people outside the door will kick the Sun family's nose. The nose is in the sky." Mr. Sun initially disagreed when he heard this. But when he saw that the person speaking was the crown princess, no matter how much he disagreed, he would keep it in his stomach. Otherwise, he still wants to contradict the crown princess in person? Fan Kinjao looked at the door of Sun's house and stepped up the steps. Sun Kongtong knew that Fan Kinjao was about to take action, and his eyes shone with excitement. Based on past experience, as long as Fan Kinjao wants to torture him, he cannot leave completely. Just when Fan Kinjao passed by Sun Kentang, he stopped and said, "Today's matter can only be resolved if you, the person involved, come forward. You have to be prepared." Mrs. Sun's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. Sun Kentang nodded excitedly. "Okay. As long as you call me, I will go out." Thinking about the past days when she and Fan Kinjao tortured each other, she couldn't be too happy. But just when Sun Kentang was rolling up his arms and sleeves, thinking about how to give himself a bad breath, he heard Fan Kinjao say again, "You don't need to worry about anything else. You just need to remember that no matter what happens outside, whatever happened, you have to show an attitude of forgiving the Ma family master." Sun Kentang. She is so angry that she wants to eat people, but she still forgives her? Fan Kinjao held her hand and warned again, "Kongtong, I won't let you be wronged, believe me." Sun Kongtong, who was holding back his anger, looked at Fan Kinjao's calm and steady black eyes and could only nod reluctantly. Fan Kinjao is naturally worthy of her trust. Fan Kinjao patted Sun Kentang's trembling hands comfortingly, held up her skirt and walked out of the Sun's house. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 543. Chapter 543 What it's like to have someone's backing. Mrs. Sun's wife saw that Fan Kinjao was going out to apologize, and looked at her husband eagerly. Their family already owed the crown princess a lot, so how could they ask the crown princess to help them make amends now? Mr. Sun's family also hurriedly walked out the door. If people knew that the crown princess was helping his Sun family make amends, he would probably not have to continue working as an official. It was Mr. Ma who was standing at the door of the Sun family and yelling. When he saw Fan Kinjao coming out, he raised his head and snorted disdainfully, "Oh, what's the matter? The Sun family is too guilty to come forward. They plan to let you, a yellow-haired girl, help them. Can't you reason with me?" Fan Kinjao stopped and stood on the steps, looking down at the rogue-looking Mr. Ma. "Who do you think you are? Do you deserve me to argue with you? Mr. Ma, who was used to being arrogant at the door of Sun's house, didn't react at all and was stunned by the scolding. It was the master of the Sun family who was walking out the door. Hearing these words, his feet trembled and he almost fell flat on the ground. Who apologizes like this when you open your mouth and curse others? Mrs. Sun's wife, who was standing inside the door, was also startled. Where is the apology you promised? Looking at the crown princess's posture, how can she be more arrogant than the one who took the initiative to cause trouble? Sun Kongtong secretly raised the corners of her lips when she heard Fan Qinjiao's voice. Although she still didn't understand what Qinjiao meant by asking her to forgive, she just knew that as long as Qinjiao was around, she would never let her suffer a loss. Outside the door, the Ma family master came back to his senses and glared at Fan Qinjiao. Young girl, how can you be so polite when you talk so much in filthy words? Fan Qinjiao left the main city with her mother at a very young age. Since she did not grow up in the main city, her face was extremely unfamiliar to most people in the main city. Later on, Fan Qinjiao did several major things that caused a sensation in the main city, but many people only heard about his reputation and did not recognize him. Fan Qinjiao doesn't like to show off in the city, and the Sun Mansion lives in the south of the city, which is far away from the western suburbs mansion, so the people here have never seen Fan Qinjiao at all. The Ma family is just a small family that makes a living by selling tofu, and it is even less likely that they know Fan Qinjiao. Fan Qinjiao was not in a hurry to reveal his identity. After all, it was more comfortable to keep a low profile when it came to swearing. I heard that as long as the Ma family master came to the door of the Sun Mansion, he would just curse. Mr. Ma himself doesn't know how to speak human language, and I'm afraid it's hard for you to understand what other people say. Hearing these words, Madame Sun's views were all overturned. This is still the low-key and humble crown prince that she remembered. It's just that now that the situation is like this, it's hard for Mrs. Sun's family to come forward, so she can only look at her husband again. But this time, Mr. Sun's family stood still and did not move. You, a woman, can't stand up for you, so how can it be easier for me, who is wearing a black gauze hat, to stand up? Besides, the crown princess is not at a disadvantage now. What is he going to do when he goes out? Couldn't he and the crown princess have a mixed doubles match? It's enough for a future crown princess to curse people in the street. If he, a 5th grade official, is added to the mix, wouldn't it be a complete mess? The people on the street looked at Fan Qinjiao with wide eyes as he poked Mr. Ma's heart every word. Facing the insults from the Ma family master, even the Sun family would retreat. Where did this girl come from and why is she so bold? The master of the Ma family was so beaten by Fan Qinjiao that his chest hurt. He simply sat on the ground and cried, "Oh my God! Open your eyes. The Sun family has bullied others too much. Not only has my son been wronged, but he will not repay me. I'm being fair, but now you're actually trying to find this to me off to death." Fan Qinjiao has been waiting for this. The Ma family master keeps saying that the Sun family has wronged the Ma family master, but he does not mention how the Ma family master is wronged. Isn't it a bit ridiculous? The people around him were stunned when they heard this. Yes, they have watched the excitement these days one after another, but they still don't know what is going on. Fan Qinjiao's dark eyes were dark, staring at the Ma family master and refusing to let go, or rather, the Ma family master simply has a guilty conscience, so he deliberately kept silent and confused right and wrong here. Under the moonlight, there seemed to be a sword light flickering in Fan Qinjiao's eyes that seemed to be smiling but not smiling. Mr. Ma's family trembled when those eyes stared at him, and he hugged his shoulders subconsciously, but he still spoke plausibly. The Sun family sent the news that day, saying that they wanted my son to come and get engaged to a girl from the Sun family, but that night he was taken to jail, so what if it wasn't that the Sun family turned against them? The words spoken by Mr. Ma were not only evasive, but also full of strong arguments. It is no wonder that Mrs. Sun and Mr. Sun went into battle together, but both returned defeated in the end. But this method is completely useless when used on Fan Kinjao. Speaking of it this way, I happened to be there that day, but if I remember correctly, when the young master of the Ma family came, he clearly said that he heard that the girl from the Sun family fell into the attic. Moreover, the whole Sun family was busy at that time. How can a girl at home be free enough to seek medical advice and send news to a foreign man? Mr. Ma's face was extremely ugly. He frowned and said, "You are obviously talking nonsense. If you can't say it, you're going to start messing around again?" Fan Kinjao smiled coldly. "The Ma family master only heard about it, but I saw it with my own eyes." "Who is talking nonsense? Does the Ma family master really have no idea in his heart? Or does the Ma family master think that when their daughter is dying, what her parents want is not to treat her daughter immediately, but to marry her off?" These words touched the hearts of the people around him. Among the people present, there were also mothers and fathers. Of course they knew they had to save their children first. Besides, they have lived here for many years, but they all know how much the two elders of the Sun family love the Sun family girl. As a result, everyone looked at Mr. Ma with suspicion. Even if Mr. Ma has little knowledge, he can still see the current scene and gradually deviate from his thoughts. Fan Kinjao looked at the Ma family master, paused and said, "Ever since the Ma family young master was put into prison, the Ma family master has been making trouble outside the Sun mansion every day. If he is really worried about his son, shouldn't he quickly find a way to get his son in prison? Or, the Ma family master knows very well that there is no hope for the Ma family's young master to be released." These three consecutive questions from the soul not only left the Ma family master speechless, but also made the people around him ask questions again and again. Everyone couldn't help but speculate carefully. If Mr. Ma knew in advance that his son would not be rescued, why did he come to the Sun mansion to cause trouble? Of course he has a guilty conscience and wants to kill the fish and kill the net. The doubtful glances gradually rising from around him made Mr. Ma's heart completely uncertain. Looking at Fan Kinjao standing on the steps, the Ma family master felt disgusted. He immediately got up from the ground and rushed towards Fan Kinjao. "You little who doesn't deserve to die. Look at me, tear your mouth apart." End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 544. Chapter 544, What It's Like to Have Someone's Backing, 2. Mr. Ma's master took action as soon as he was told, but it frightened everyone present. Seeing this, the master of the Sun family who had been standing at the door also hurriedly walked out, guarding Fan Kinjao tightly behind him. But before Mr. Sun could open his mouth to scold him, he heard a dense set of footsteps approaching from far away. Soon, I saw a group of official messengers surrounding the gate of Sun Mansion. The people around him were frightened when they looked at the man in official uniform walking in front. Even if someone makes trouble, the only one who is alarmed is the prefect of the main city. But look at the official uniform on that man now. He is wearing a bird patch and a coral pearl hanging around his neck. This is what a second-grade official wears. As soon as Sun Che saw the Ma family master rushing in front of Fan Kinjao, he immediately ordered, "Take down this evil man." The casual official rushed over and pushed Mr. Ma to the ground in 2 strokes. Sun Che walked up to Fan Kinjao in person and asked softly, "Are you injured?" Fan Kinjao shook his head. Uncle Sun came just in time. The Ma family master, who was forced to kneel on the ground, rolled his eyes and shouted quickly, "Sir, you have to make decisions for the common people. In the main city, under the emperor's feet. You must not bend the law for personal gain." This is what Fan Kinjao called Sun Che, and he deliberately put a hat on Sun Che's head. The master of the Sun family was also an official. Hearing these words, he angrily said, "Officials of the imperial court will be honest and impartial. If you dare to slander a second-grade official, it is a serious crime punishable by 50 rods. You must think carefully before you speak. Mr. Ma frowned and said, "You officer. You officers protect each other, but you still don't allow me to tell the truth." Mr. Sun's eyes were wide open and his whole face was blue. To give gas. He has never seen it before, so how can there be people who rely on ignorance to make false claims? Even if they come to arrest me and cause trouble, they are just the prefect. Where is the second-grade official? Speaking of which, it's not your son Jiatian who shamelessly did some evil deeds, and that's why you invited this second-grade official. Common people, you all need to take a closer look. I'm afraid this future governor is not a good person, otherwise he would be in a bad mood with the Sun family. Mr. Ma's family was kneeling on the ground, shouting at the top of his lungs. He had inquired before he came to cause trouble. Not to mention that the prefect of the main city had no time to deal with such a trivial matter. Even if he really alarmed the government, he would just reprimand him and let him go. Looking at Mr. Ma's fearless look, Lord Sun knew that this man must have inquired about it in advance. Otherwise, why would he be so bold and talk so boldly even when he met the governor now? Looking up at Sun Che, who was standing aside, the master of the Sun family was full of apologies. But before Mr. Sun could figure out how to make amends, he heard Sun Che order, "Come here. Give me a beating." The Ma family master, who was still feeling proud at first, was a little confused after hearing these words. Beat? Hit what? The master of the Sun family naturally felt relieved when he saw the confused look on the face of the master of the Ma family. But if you hit someone so openly, I'm afraid you'll lose your reputation. Sure enough, the master of the Ma family yelled when he reacted, "What do you want? I just came to the Sun family to reason. Why do you beat me? Don't think that I don't know the dirty behavior of your officials. If you dare to accuse me unjustly, as for me, I will ring the Wendengu in front of the palace and go to the imperial court. If you don't let him do well, no one will do well." But Sun Che obviously didn't have time to accompany him, so he raised his arms and waved behind him. Soon, he saw a person walking over in the dark. Everyone took a closer look. Who is the prefect of the main city? The prefect of the main city unfolded the charges in his hand. The prisoner Ma Hongshun has confessed that he has evil thoughts towards the Miss Sun family and hopes to become the Sun family's son-in-law. However, the Miss Sun family disdains him and sternly refuses him many times, but the prisoner Ma Hongshun was persistent in his evil intentions. He not only pestered Miss Sun all day long, but also took the opportunity to push Miss Sun down from the attic. After verification by the officer, Ma Hongshun even took the initiative to confess that all his alleged actions were instigated by his father. As soon as these words were spoken, the truth became clear. The people around him were shocked to see the crimes in the hands of the prefect, and they never expected that things would be like this. I also did not expect that even the Master Ma family, who was shocked by his Hifu, was also a good face. The words were still the same, but they sounded so weak now. Sun Che lowered his eyes and looked at the Ma family master, who was pressed on the ground. The prefect thought that you were old, so he didn't want to pursue the case. He never thought that you would not repent, and even bothered the Sun family after the incident. Come on. This person is here. Hit 50 big boards again. The Ma family master was forced to the ground by the officer. Looking at Sun Che in front of him, he shouted like crazy, "You can't hit me." Even if it is a trial at this time, the prefect should take the initiative. To put it bluntly, the Sun family still doesn't know what to do. How can I ask you to support me? Master Sun. I am of the 5th grade and others are of the 2nd grade. I would never dream of asking others to come forward to support me. You really think highly of me? Sun Che looked at Mr. Ma's face without changing his expression. You are right, this case does not require my intervention, but if you insult the future crown princess and even want to harm the crown princess, I have the right to make a decision. Wei, the future crown princess. Not to mention Mr. Ma, even the people around him were shocked when they heard this. Thinking about it again, everyone's eyes unconsciously fell on Fan Qingjie. The Ma family master raised his head and looked at Fan Qingjie, his eyes widened in shock. You are actually the princess. Fan Qingjie did not answer the Ma family master, and did not even look at him. He just looked at Sun Che and said, "Today's matter has troubled Governor Sunday. Although I have a close relationship with Governor Sun, I still hope that Governor Sun can handle it impartially." Since Fan Qingjie's identity has been exposed, the matter of Sun Che marrying Hua Yuelian will soon be thought of by the people. It's just that the people didn't expect that the crown princess not only did not avoid the relationship between herself and Governor Sun, but also took the initiative to put the relationship on the table openly. What can this mean? It shows that the crown princess and Governor Sun feel no guilt. Sun Che thought for a moment and understood the meaning of Fan Qingjie's words. Instead of letting people speculate innocently, it is better to admit it openly. This way, it not only prevents the Ma family masters from making a fuss about their relationship, but also makes the people think that only with a clear conscience can they dare to be so upright. Even the last glimmer of hope was blocked by Fan Qingjie. The Ma family master suddenly kowtowed to Fan Qingjie. "It's the common people who are ignorant. The common people don't know that it's the princess who is driving. It's all the common people who are blind and ignorant. Taishan, the crown princess is magnanimous, so she must not be as knowledgeable as ordinary people." Even at this time, Master Ma has not forgotten to threaten Fan Qingjie. It's just that no matter how the Ma family master cried and kowtowed, Fan Qingjie completely ignored him. When her identity was not exposed, she could argue for the Sun family, but now that she is in the position of the crown princess, the Ma family master is not even qualified to talk to her. Things have become such that even a fool can see what's going on. Mr. Sun's family breathed a sigh of relief. The matter was finally explained clearly, and her daughter was finally innocent. Mrs. Sun's wife, who was standing in the dark, excitedly squeezed her daughter's hand and saw Fan Qingjie looking this way. Mrs. Sun's wife thought about what the crown princess had told her before, and then looked at her daughter beside her. "The crown princess is calling you." Sun Kentong. After checking her eyes, it was time for her to appear. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 545. Chapter 545. Since you dare to do it, you are not afraid. Sun Kongtong understood what Fan Qingjie was looking at, but when she saw Master Ma who still didn't repent, she just wanted to chop him into pieces and feed him to the dogs. "Where are you still in the mood to talk about forgiveness?" Mrs. Sun's wife saw her daughter getting sick and quickly pushed her out. "The crown princess has worked so hard for our family, so don't hold her back at this time." Sun Kentong was pushed so hard that he staggered and almost hit his own door. The sound at the door attracted the attention of people outside. Seeing this, Sun Kentong could only bite the bullet and walk out. It has been so long since the Ma family master came to make trouble outside the Sun family. This is the first time for the people around to see Miss Sun family. Now looking at Sun Kentong's thin body and slightly white lips, the evil deeds of the Ma family are obvious. It has completely taken root in their hearts. As soon as Mr. Ma saw Sun Kentong, he was so excited that he wanted to get up, but he was pinned to the ground by the surrounding officials, and even his mouth was tightly gagged. Sun Kongtong looked at the ferocious-looking Mr. Ma, and his palms itched with hatred. Fan Qingjie. The two of them were disgusted with each other, which really gave her a headache. Fan Qingjie took Sun Kentong's hand and deliberately lowered his voice. "Don't worry, since the Ma family has gone too far in this matter, I will definitely give you justice. The young master of the Ma family will be in prison for the rest of his life. There is no hope of getting out. As for the Ma family master, I'll give him a 50-50 beating and send him in to stay with his son." These words are really cruel. He was so cruel that Mr. Sun's family was shocked. Although Sun Kantong hated the Ma family, Ma Hongshun already deserved his punishment. Although the Ma family master was certainly hateful, she did not want to waste other people's lives. If this is really the case, what is the difference between her and Ma Hongshun? Although the Ma family has been making trouble, they have never harmed me or my family. I beg the crown princess to keep someone behind this is what Sun Kongtong said, but he still felt unwilling to do so. Fan Kinjao looked at Sun Kantong who was gritting his teeth and saying words of forgiveness, and he really couldn't laugh or cry. But for now, it can be considered the best ending. The master of the Sun family looked at the calm and composed crown princess, and was frightened for a while. His daughter is good at everything, but she is stubborn as hell, otherwise the marriage would not be chosen and decided. But look at the princess, one sentence can force her stubborn daughter to bow her head. She is indeed a person who can become the crown princess, and it is indeed a good idea. In fact, Mrs. Sun's wife still has resentment in her heart, but her daughter is inexperienced, but she is not a fool. Even if the Ma family is at fault in this matter, if the Sun family handles it fairly, it would be too aggressive. If the news really got out, it would be difficult for her daughter to get married in the future. After all, no husband wants to marry a cruel daughter-in-law. It's just that the crown princess has been wronged for going to such an extent for her own daughter. Once this matter gets out, I'm afraid many people will say that the crown princess is mean and mean. Since Fan Kinjao dares to do it, he is naturally not afraid. She can marry Bailey Fengming, which involves the emperor's interests. So as long as she doesn't make a big mistake, the emperor will never kick her out of the position of crown princess. What is the use of a hairdryer for the emperor? Sun Kongtong personally begged the crown princess for mercy, so no one could touch the Ma family master anymore. But even if Mr. Ma's family escapes this time, he will never dare to come to the Sun's family to cause trouble next time. Today's events are all seen by the people around. Oh, what's the matter? The Sun family doesn't remember the faults of villains. You still have the nerve to shamelessly come to make trouble. You really think that there is no king's law in the main city, right? If you continue, if you dare to come, not to mention that the crown princess will never show mercy again, even we will beat you up. Amidst almost a chorus of curses, the Ma family master fled. Mrs. Sun and Mr. Sun looked at each other, feeling indescribably happy. Is this what it feels like to be supported by others? Enjoyed. Fan Kinjao saw that it was getting late, so he told Sun Kongtong to have a good rest and got on the carriage back. Sun Che escorted him back carefully, but standing at the door of the western suburbs mansion, he seemed very embarrassed. Although his own affairs have been settled, as long as he thinks of Yu Lian's injustice under his nose, he feels shameless to face the Hua family. Fortunately, Fan Kinjao had no intention of inviting him in, so Sun Che breathed a sigh of relief. Fan Zhao, who came to open the door, was stunned for a long time as he looked at Sun Che's figure that was almost running away with his tail between his legs. After a long while, he closed the door, turned back in confusion, and kept looking at the yard behind him. The nurse next to me saw it and asked curiously, "What are you looking at?" Fan Zhao was babbling, "Could it be that our house is haunted? Why else would my uncle be running so fast? Nursing home. It's scary in the middle of the night." Fan Kinjao certainly knew what Sun Che was embarrassed about. He was the one who vowed to give his mother happiness, but something happened to her mother under his nose. Had it not been discovered in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Since Sun Che received the news from her today, he was able to find out what happened from the prefect as quickly as possible, and then reported it to the official in the name of the prefect to handle the matter satisfactorily, which is enough to show how thoughtful he is. Sun Che, who is so good at thinking, naturally wants to recall what happened. With his temperament, the more he thinks about it, the more he will feel guilty. It is precisely because of this that he now dares not even face the Hua family. Normally speaking, it is normal for Fan Qingjie to feel that Sun Che is guilty, and it is also a punishment for his negligence. But Fan Qingjie wished his mother well, so he couldn't let Sun Che feel guilty like this. When the guilt turns into alienation, the mother will be the saddest. Thinking like this, Fan Qingjie found his grandmother early the next morning. Tao Yuxian, who was just about to have breakfast, saw Fan Qingjie coming in and hurriedly pulled her to sit down and eat together. The result was that I heard about Sun Che. Tao Yuxian also didn't expect that Sun Che only thought about his guilt towards the Hua family afterward, but forgot that guilt requires compensation, which also gave him a headache. Putting down her chopsticks, she looked at Fan Qingjie and asked, "Tell me your plans." Fan Qingjie said, "Granddaughter is thinking that since this matter has alarmed the Hua family still needs to come forward. Only if our Hua family gives an attitude first can Uncle Sun feel at ease." Tao Yuxian thought about it carefully, then nodded and said, "Let's do it." Fan Qingjie smiled and said, "Uncle Sun feels guilty, which means he likes my mother. This is a good thing, but he is just a peacemaker. My granddaughter can change her clothes and go." Fan Qingjie is the granddaughter of the Hua family, but now she is also the crown prince bestowed by the emperor. Even if Fan Qingjie is willing to give in for his mother, how can Tao Yuxian be willing to let his granddaughter show up for such trivial matters? "I'll go with you, you just need to talk to your mother, and leave the rest to me." That is. Fan Qingjie knew that his grandmother felt sorry for him, so he smiled and nodded, "I don't feel bored when my grandmother is with me to talk to me on the road." Tao Yuxian felt even more distressed when he heard this. Even though he knows everything, he is always worried about what his family members think. How can such a child not make people feel distressed? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 546. Chapter 546, Mother, please be well. After breakfast, Fan Qingjie went to Sun's house with his grandmother. This time I arrived at the Sun family, but it was different from the last time. Now the Sun family's house is full of servants who used to live in the eldest prince's house. They are not only full of rules, but also advance and retreat in a controlled manner. The doorkeeper heard that someone from the Hua family was coming, and while sending someone to report, he invited Fan Qingjie and Tao Yuxian to come in. That respectful look even made Tao Yuxian a little surprised. Looking at Xiao Qingjie walking beside her, she understood everything. "No wonder you insisted on buying all the servants from the eldest prince's mansion. It turned out to be for this reason." The eldest prince was demoted, and the eldest prince's concubine's mother's family also followed suit. Although the emperor didn't make much noise about this matter, people who work in the eldest prince's residence will always hear some rumors. Now everyone knows that the eldest prince's failed attempt to assassinate the prince led to today's situation. How dare these servants in the eldest prince's palace not treat the crown prince with respect? Fan Qingjie smiled and said, "Nothing can be hidden from grandma. Just to make these people fear her, they will respect her mother even more. Moreover, these servants were all bought by her with money. They seemed to be slaves in the Sun family, but in fact their hearts were held by her. In this way, if there was any trouble in the Sun family, these people would automatically the news will be sent to her as soon as possible." Tao Yuxian patted Fan Qingjie's hand, feeling relieved and worried at the same time. Now the prince is still in the palace and cannot return to the main city, and the third prince has been having fun over there. If this matter had happened to other women, I am afraid they would have been depressed because of it. How many of them could be like Xiao Qingjie and have the time to arrange things at home so well? You should be at an age where you are busy with your future, but you are always taking care of your home. In the final analysis, it was the Hua family that caused her problems. Fan Qinjiao is not too worried about Bailey Fengming. Even though Bailey Fengming was in the palace, Lin Yu was still in the main city. How can any disturbance in the main city escape the eyes of Bailey Fengming? Bailey Fengming was not in a hurry to come back, he already had a plan to win. Of course, Fan Qinjiao didn't want Bailey Fengming to return to the main city without anyone noticing, so she was also waiting for an opportunity that would make Bailey Fengming the center of attention. It was Hua Yulian who was basking in the sun in the yard when she saw her mother and daughter coming and was startled. "Mother, you yatter. Why didn't you send someone to send me a message in advance when you came here? Look at me," Hua Yulian said, lowering her cheeks in embarrassment. But even if she dodged again, Fan Qinjiao could still see the twinkling tears in the corners of her eyes. Tao Yuxian inadvertently looked at Xiao Qinjiao beside him, their eyes met, and they understood each other tacitly. "It's only been a few days since we last met. Why is it worth crying with such excitement?" "So it was only because I felt aggrieved that I burst into tears when I saw them arriving." Tao Yuxian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seemed that since the incident with the old lady of the Sun family, Sun Che had never explained the matter to his daughter, and perhaps he deliberately kept a distance out of guilt. "Is what makes my daughter so miserable. You know the meat that falls out of your belly. My own daughter is a sensitive one, and now Sun Che feels so unclear about his guilt. If it is fine for a short period of time, if time goes by, he may be separated from her because of this. Two people live a life like this, and it becomes dull. If you add a little flavor, you will feel that this life is not what it used to be. But if two people really want to help each other, where do the right and wrong come from? To put it bluntly, it's not you who tolerates me, but I tolerate you." Tao Yuxian looked at his daughter's red eyes, paused and then said, "If two people are unwilling to let go of their pride and solve the problem, they may be able to tell right from wrong at the beginning, but over time, the two hearts will gradually become cold. It doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong, we can't go back to the past anyway." Fan Qinjiao sat next to her grandmother and gently wiped her mother's tears. "Yesterday I just asked Uncle Sun for a small favor, and Uncle Sun came over overnight. It shows that he still values his mother's family. Otherwise, if I don't take my mother seriously, who am I?" Hua Yuelian didn't know that Sun Che went out in such a hurry last night to do something for his Yuye. Since the old lady of the Sun family left last time, Sun Che has become even busier. Hua Yuelian only thought that Sun Che was blaming herself, so it was not good for her to appear in front of him. Now, after careful calculation, although the two of them live together, they have not spoken to each other for a long time. Fan Qinjiao saw his mother's frown slowly relaxing, so she sat aside and stopped talking. "Now facing my mother, neither she nor my grandmother can explain things clearly. Life is a matter for two people. If too many people get involved, it may not be a good thing." Tao Yuxian listened to Fan Qinjiao's words, his face was calm, but his heart was already boiling. How old is her little Qinjiao? Why is it so difficult to get through life? Had it not been for her granddaughter still sitting in the sunshine, fresh, she would have thought that the person who just said those words would be 80 years old. At nearly noon, Tao Yuxian quietly asked the general next to his daughter to pass the news to Sun Che. Sun Che heard that his mother-in-law was coming with the crown princess and came back quickly. Tao Yuxian looked at Sun Che's sweaty appearance and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Sun Che can still be anxious, he still has his daughter in his heart. After a few people had a quick lunch, Tao Yuxian went to Sun Che's study alone. Fan Qinjiao stayed with his mother and took her pulse. If the mother's mood is stable, the fetus will be healthy. Fan Qinjiao comforted his mother that there was no need to worry too much. She would be able to see the newborn little carrot head by the end of the year. Then he gave all the anti-fetal medicines he had brought to his mother and carefully instructed her to take them. Dosage and frequency. After Fan Kinjao finished explaining, Tao Yuxian also walked out of the study. In the evening, Fan Kinjao and Tao Yuxian got on the carriage back home. Sun Che and Hua Yuelian stood at the door of the house to see each other off. Seeing that his wife, whom he had not seen for many days, had lost a lot of weight, Sun Che felt very uncomfortable. It happened to be windy outside again, so he took off his cloak and put it around Hua Yuelian's shoulders. As soon as the familiar smell and temperature came to the surface, Hua Yuelian's eyes began to turn red again. Sun Che hurriedly coaxed, "It's all my fault. I should speak out." Hua Yulian suppressed the soreness in her throat and said, "You and I are husband and wife, and it is natural for us to share blessings and share hardships." Hearing this, Sun Che couldn't help but hug his wife in his arms. "I won't do it again." It was Tao Yuxian who was sitting in the carriage, quietly looking out the window. When he saw that his daughter and son-in-law had finally reconciled, his face showed the smile that an old mother should have. "Fan Kinjao, you are also a general's wife after all. Is it really okay to just listen to the wall like this?" End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 547. Chapter 547. Who wants to enjoy the fireworks with you? After a day of toil, it was already dark by the time Fan Kinjao returned to the house. Ta Shui, who had been waiting in the yard for a long time, fell asleep while waiting. He smelled a familiar scent in his sleep, so he opened his eyes and lazily approached Fan Kinjao. Fan Kinjao took the letter from Ta Shui and ordered Ningguan to take Ta Shui down for dinner. Once he heard the word eat, Ta Shui didn't even look back and just followed Ningguan away. Fan Kinjao looked at Ta Shui's fart and had the illusion that he had a little white-eyed wolf. Back in the house, Fan Kinjao habitually opened the letter and read it first. The result was what Bailey Fengming was saying. This year's New Year marks the 30th anniversary of the Emperor's enthronement. I heard that the imperial court has stockpiled a large amount of fireworks, and plans to make the Emperor happy during the New Year's Eve. Fan Kinjao looked at these words and felt that he deserved to be uncomfortable. The military salary over the years has been raised by my grandfather and other veteran generals. If the imperial court is really poor, forget it. Look at what the imperial court did. They had no money to pay for the army, but they had money to hoard fireworks just to make the emperor smile. The official is cowardly, and the king is in a coma. Her Hua family was full of loyalty and rushed to the front line for Ziliang Shiji, and her blood was splashed on the battlefield. But what the emperor was afraid of was that the Hua family's merits were higher than the master's, so he did not hesitate to frame him and try to kill all the men in the Hua family. Looking at the cowards in the court, they only know how to covet power, but they are quite appreciated by the emperor. Now the upper beam in Ziliang is not straight, and the lower beam is naturally crooked. As a king, standing at the highest place, he has no country and country in his heart. The common people only have the selfish desire to hold the imperial power in their hands. Such a court has long lost the justice that my grandfather spoke of. How can such a king be worthy of being the king of a country? Fan Kinjao's fingertips holding the letter trembled with force. He closed his eyes for a long time before opening them again. Suppressing the anger in my heart, I looked down, and the result was that I saw a sentence: "By then, the city will be filled with fireworks, and they will be together. I only hope that people will live long and share the beauty of the moon thousands of miles away." The heart that was still burning with anger suddenly became quiet. Fan Kinjao certainly didn't believe it. Bailey Fengming wrote this just because he wanted to enjoy the fireworks with her. He was afraid that after learning the news, he was afraid that she would be angry if he told the truth, but if he didn't tell the truth, he was afraid that she would settle the score later, so he deliberately invited her to watch the fireworks together later. This man. I am afraid that if it is a matter in the world, there will be nothing that he cannot take into account. But who wants to enjoy the fireworks with him? Fan Kinjao suppressed the slightly raised corners of his lips and continued to look down. The result was that I saw Bailey Fengming mentioning in the letter that Kinkai School was tracking down the Lynx Yupils, and followed them all the way to the northwest, but all the news was suddenly interrupted. Fan Kinjao looked at the last sentence and felt something was wrong. In the town over the palace, the rumors about Lynx Yupils are definitely not groundless. But since the news is getting more and more serious, how can it stop suddenly? Unless it means someone deliberately blocked all messages. Even the Kinkai School could not be traced, which shows the skill of those who blocked the news. If the blockade is fake and real, then what lies ahead must be a trap. Today, Bailey Fengming's palace is an embarrassing period. At this time, taking the initiative to retreat when faced with difficulties can be regarded as retreating in order to advance. Fan Kinjao threw the letter into the candlestick, but his thoughts never left his mind. The northwest of Ziliang is the direction of the Janai kingdom. If there is a Lynx Yupil, the Janai kingdom will probably know about it. Thinking like this, Fan Kinjao made up his mind to ask the Prince of Janai if he knew anything when he went to the palace tomorrow to see the prince. Unexpectedly, when Fan Kinjao arrived at the palace where Janai lived as scheduled the next day, he was told that the Prince of Janai was frightened. He was frightened all night yesterday and fell asleep in a daze this morning. As a result, the palace was even more tightly guarded. Fan Kinjao was not in a good position to continue testing the sensitive edges at this time. Fortunately, the Prince of Janai Kingdom has not finished drinking the second dose of medicine, and he will have to take it for about 7 or 8 days. Fan Kinjao carefully wrote down the number of times to take the medicine and the time to decoct it, handed it to the guard, and then left the palace. There are assassins in the palace, and the palace is under martial law. Now walking on the palace road, patrolling guards can be seen everywhere. Fan Kinjao originally wanted to pay his respects to the queen, but after thinking about it, he walked towards the palace gate. There is not peace in the palace, and she and the queen must avoid getting into trouble. Concubine Yu, who is now seriously injured, is still recovering in Yuya Palace, and the emperor is by her side all night long. The third prince also came to the palace to attend to his illness. He heard that he accompanied the emperor to play chess all night in Yuya Palace yesterday. Originally, the third prince was implicated by the eldest prince and should have been banned. But it happened that concubine Yu was injured at this time. In this way, it is natural for the third prince to enter the palace to attend to the illness. Although the emperor did not have a good look towards the third prince, he did not stop the third prince from continuing to enter the palace to attend to his illness. After experiencing this incident, many of the staff of the third prince's party wanted to take the opportunity to escape. But now seeing the emperor's subtle attitude towards the third prince, they temporarily suppressed their thoughts and stood on the wall waiting for the news. Originally, Fan Kinjao was still thinking about finding an opportunity to bring Bailey Fengming back to the city in the past few days. But concubine Yu stabbed herself in advance and successfully diverted the emperor's attention away. Bailey Fengming was very indifferent to this and spent the whole day reading and playing chess in the palace. Not only did he not feel impatient, but he also told Fan Kinjao to calm down. Ji Hongliao couldn't stand it anymore. The dignified prince actually lived a life of retirement in advance. What does it sound like? Even the former emperor is not as cool as you. But Fan Kinjao knew that Bailey Fengming had been accustomed to keeping a low profile since he was a child, and now these things really don't matter. September has entered, and the days are getting cooler day by day. As Hua Fengming's return date gradually approached, Tao Yuxian also decided on a time to meet with the Wu family. On the day of the meeting, Fan Kinjao specially asked Aunt Su to choose a simple and elegant long skirt for herself. The other jewelry was also as simple as possible. After all, she was attending her brother's wedding. If she was too showy, she would steal the limelight of the Wu family and look unworthy. Respect. As a result, when Fan Kinjao arrived at the front hall, he heard Hua Yaoding frowning and saying, "Why are you dressed so plainly?" Tao Yuxian was too lazy to pay attention to his rough guy. He just looked at Fan Kinjao and nodded with a smile. Although he is a bit plain, the important thing is that he will not let the Wu family mistakenly think that he is declaring troops to seize the throne. Hua Yaoding was ignored and was still unconscious. After thinking about it, he said again, "Our little Kinjao is the future princess. What's wrong even if she wears brighter clothes? How can my granddaughter be compared to others?" Fan Kinjao explained, "Perhaps I will be my future sister-in-law when we meet today, so it's better to be more modest." Hua Yaoding was not happy. If it is possible, it is still unknown. There is no need to be modest. Wear what you should wear. Besides, Fan Ning said that we would marry you. How could I have wronged you? Tao Yuxian. I just feel so tired. Tao Yuxian deeply felt that if she was interrupted by her rough guy again, she and Xiao Qinjiao were afraid that they would not be able to leave the house tonight, so they quickly changed the topic and said, "After all, it's time for the master to go to court. How come you haven't even changed into court clothes yet?" Going to court is a big event, and Hua Yaoding cannot afford to delay it. The emperor's attitude towards the third prince is subtle, and the ministers in the court are also thoughtful. How can Hua Yaoding not be worried? If the emperor once again pays attention to the third prince because of the affair with the imperial concubine, the return of the prince may be far away. Just looking at his little Kinjao, Hua Yaoding thought for a while and swallowed the words that came to his lips. Say it now just to make Xiao Qinjiao worried. It would be better to let her live a stable life for a few more days. And he heard the commotion in the main hall and hurriedly went in personally to ask the master to change his court clothes. Tao Yuxian sighed helplessly when he saw Hua Yaoding finally striding away. They are all half buried in Lois. When will the problem of protecting the calf be corrected? Do they really have to be brought into the coffin? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 548. Chapter 548 Miss Wu Family. The meeting place for the Wu family was set at Liyuanzai in the main city. Fan Kinjao was quite surprised when he first heard about it. Liyuanzai refers to the vase that sings and sings. Normally, the first meeting is usually at a tea house or restaurant. How can someone come up and take someone to the ways? Although it is not a shameful thing to listen to books and music, it is a bit frivolous after all. Especially since it was the woman who decided on the location this time. Is she really not afraid of future taboos from her husband's family? Tao Yuxian also frowned a little when he heard that he was going to meet at Washi. Although today's Hua family is not a high-class mansion, the family rules and regulations cannot be broken. Since we have already made an appointment, we must go and see it. The woman can be unkind, but the Hua family cannot be unjust. Moreover, marriage is not a trivial matter. The woman has already decided on the location, and the man cannot shirk it no matter what. If the reputation of breaking one's promise spreads, even the marriages of other junior members of the Hua family will be affected. Fan Kinjao looked at his grandmother's slightly frowning brows and felt that there was no chance of anything happening today. Liyuanzai is located on a street to the west of the main city. As soon as the carriage stopped at the door, you could hear the lively singing and storytelling inside, as well as the cheers of the onlookers. Fan Kinjao first stepped on the footstool to get out of the carriage, and then turned around to help his grandmother. A nun walked over with a smile, and said politely, "Our young lady knew that the old lady of the Hua family was afraid of noise, so she reserved a private room early in the morning, and even asked the old slave to stay here to guide the old lady of the Hua family." Tao Yuxian and Fan Kinjao looked at each other, but they didn't expect Miss Wu to have such thoughts. It's difficult for the Miss Wu family to be interested. Tao Yuxian's expression softened slightly. Fen Ning is the eldest grandson of the Hua family, and the Miss Wu family is the eldest grandson's daughter-in-law when she marries into the family. It is best to be thorough and reliable in everything she does. But the nun who was leading the way said, the old lady from the Hua family has misunderstood. The young lady from the old slave family's surname is Kong. Tao Yuxian was obviously a little surprised, but he still said calmly, lead the way. Fan Qinjiao felt calm in his heart. The post his grandmother received was personally sent by the Wu family, which showed that there was no way that what happened today was wrong. As for what happened to the Kong family, the truth would naturally come to light after meeting the Sun family. Following the Kong family's nanny, she entered Lai Wanzai through the back door. Not only did she avoid the noise in the front hall, but she also didn't need to meet other guests. She went directly to a private room on the third floor. Fan Qinjiao was a little amazed by such careful and thoughtful work. The nanny of the Kong family, who was leading the way, stood still outside the door of the private room and gently opened the door in front of her. As Fan Qinjiao helped his grandmother through the door, the people in the private room stood up. Kong Qingying has met the old lady of the Hua family. The first person to speak was Miss Kong, wearing a beautiful bright pink dress, and the golden steps on her head swayed as she stood up. Tao Yuxian smiled and nodded, just now downstairs, I was thinking about what the Kong family looked like. I didn't expect to find out when we met, but it turned out to be more beautiful and dazzling than I imagined. Kong Qingying's face turned slightly red after being praised, and then she introduced the people around her, this is the Miss Wu family. It is inevitable that we will be unfamiliar when we meet for the first time. Miss Wu family and I have been friends since childhood. I specifically obey Ms. Wu family's instructions. I mean, come with me. It turns out that Kong Qingying and Miss Wu are close friends. Tao Yuxian instinctively looked at Miss Wu. She was wearing a light blue dress, her black hair was simply combed behind her head, and she only used a jade hairpin as a decoration on her temples. Fortunately, her facial features were heroic enough, even without the bonus of clothes and jewelry. You can also see its own head and eyebrows. Fan Qinjiao actually felt that the Miss Wu family was well dressed, but the Miss Kong family next to her was too colorfully dressed, which made the Miss Wu family look a little boring. Seeing that both Fan Qinjiao and Tao Yuxian were looking at their best friends, the Miss Kong family reminded her, you should be talking. After realizing it, the Miss Wu family quickly saluted and said, Wu Qiuzhou has met the prince. Concubine, the old lady of the Hua family. Fan Qinjiao. This is really simple and clear to say. Tao Yuxian obviously did not expect Miss Wu to speak so cleanly and neatly. She paused and then continued, I have long heard that Miss Wu is a straightforward person, but now I see that she has truly lived up to her reputation. Kong Qingying hurriedly smiled and said, Qiuzhou has had such a bad temper since he was a child. I hope that the crown princess and the old lady of the Hua family won't take offense. Once she gets familiar with it, she will let go. Zheng remembered that when she was a child, she still took me with her. I have hunted rabbits and poked hornets' nests. Tao Yuxian. How can this young lady from the Wu family be more naughty than the boy? Fan Qinjiao also rarely saw his grandmother speechless, pursed his lips and smiled softly. Hong Qingying invited everyone to take a seat, which can be described as warm and thoughtful. Fan Qinjiao was not the protagonist today, so he sat on the inside by the window and let his grandmother sit outside. Unexpectedly, when he looked up, he saw Kong Qingying sitting opposite him, leaving Wu Qiu behind. Zhou faced her grandmother. Fan Qinjiao felt a little awkward when he saw this. Normally speaking, since the young lady of the Kong family is helping the young lady of the Kong family to marry her, she should take the initiative to speak good words to her grandmother for the young lady of the Wu family, instead of throwing the protagonist in front of her grandmother. Fan Qinjiao was thinking when he heard Kong Qingying's voice rang again, the name of Crown Princess is known to everyone in the main city. It is my great fortune to see the Crown Princess today. Kong Qingying on the other side had a sweet smile, as if she had eaten honey. Fan Kinjao smiled faintly and turned his gaze outside the window. Today is not her home field. Although she doesn't know why Miss Kong brought the topic to her, she has no time to declare control over her brother's lifelong affairs. Tao Yuxian was obviously a little displeased. My little Kinjao came here specifically to see his brother. Although we don't have the same father and mother, we have a very deep relationship. Fan Kinjao looked at Kong Qingying across from him with a stiff face, and felt even more funny in his heart. This miss from the Kong family seems to be eloquent and thoughtful, but don't forget that today is Miss Wu's home court. Although Tao Yuxian said clearly that Fan Kinjao would not steal the limelight of getting married, how could this not be a hint of Kong Qingying? No matter how good you are at doing things and flattering me, the person being called dear today is not you. So you'd better calm down and settle down. Sure enough, Kong Qingying didn't speak again for a while. Tao Yuxian then looked at Wu Kaiozhuo, who was sitting opposite, and looked at him carefully. Compared to Kong Qingying's eloquent eloquence, Wu Kaiozhuo can only be described as stiff. Tao Yuxian would only answer once he asked a question, and there would be no second unnecessary words. After being polite, Tao Yuxian inevitably felt a little exhausted. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 549. Chapter 549. The Zhao family came uninvited. Wu Kaiozhuo obviously couldn't sit still for such a conversation, so he simply escaped out of the door by peeing. Seeing this, Kong Qingying said, Qiu Zhou has always liked lively and noisy things since she was a child, and she would feel bored if she didn't listen to books for a day. Today she had to choose among the tile houses. I thought it was inappropriate, but I couldn't resist her, so I had to change the room quietly. Kong Qingying looked apologetic and took the initiative to get up and accompany her. I saw her bending her knees for Tao Yuxian first, and then she looked at Fan Kinjao and said, now this window faces the street and not the main hall where storytellers and singers sing. She was already angry with me, so she neglected her the crown princess and the old lady of the Hua family. I hope the old lady of the Hua family will not take it personally, and the crown princess must not blame it. Fan Kinjao said with a smile, Miss Kong's words are serious. If Miss Wu enters the Hua family, she will be my future sister-in-law. How can I be angry with my sister-in-law? Kong Qingying probably didn't expect that the future crown princess would be so easy to talk to, so she was a little dazed for a moment. Fan Kinjao took the opportunity to get up and also left the private room on the pretext of peeing. In the corridor, Wu Kaiozhuo was leaning against the wall not far away, looking up at the sky, taking a deep breath without listening. Fan Kinjao saw it and couldn't help but walked over with a smile. It seems that a blind date is really a laborious thing for Miss Wu. Wu Kaiozhuo, who was in a trance, was startled. When he came back to his senses, he quickly stood up straight, raised his head and scratched his head in embarrassment, but felt that this action was very unsightly, so he put down his hand again. Are you kidding me? Before she left home, her mother had been telling her to be elegant and skillful, and to learn more from Kong Qingying when she had time. She also tried hard to do it, but she just couldn't do it well. Why are you laughing? If this is Miss Wu's true temperament, I think it's good Fan Kinjao came here to find a wife for his brother, not to find a painting to offer as an offering. It's real and sincere. Is the best. Wu Kaiozhuo seemed a little in disbelief. Don't you think I'm rude? Fan Kinjao smiled and shook his head. Character is nothing more than good or bad. It just depends on whether you meet someone with similar interests. I think Miss Wu's character is very good. If she didn't have such a character, how could she dare to be on the street in the first place, speak up and argue with others for the sake of my Hua family's reputation? Fan Kinjao could hear the rhetoric in the street that day like thunder. So when Wu Kaiozwo opened her mouth today, Fan Kinjao recognized her voice. Wu Kaiozeo didn't expect that Fan Kinjao was also present that day, and felt even more embarrassed. I'm just telling the truth, why does the crown princess need to comfort me? What's the consolation? If it weren't for the fact that it's not convenient for me to show up now, I would have cheered for Miss Wu in person that day. Wu Kaiozeo was a little confused. Also shouting and cheering. Are you sure this is what the crown princess should do? Fan Kinjao looked at Wu Kaiozeo's surprised look and blinked slyly. I can even block the palace gate, what else can't I do? Wu Kaiozeo. Why is this princess so different from what she imagined? But she just likes being swollen. Actually, I don't have much merit. It would be reasonable for the eldest young master of the Hua family to look down on me. Besides, I also hope that he can meet a better person, so that I can take good care of him no longer unfamiliar. Wu Qiuzhou then spoke out what was on his mind. It was only at this time that Fan Kinjao realized that this young lady from the Wu family had already met her brother. This matter will start when my brother leaves the city. That day, the horse in front of Miss Wu's carriage was frightened. It was her brother who intervened in time. Although it was just a little effort, Miss Wu remembered her brother's kindness. Even now, Fan Kinjao can still see the gratitude that the Miss Wu family feels when talking about her brother, as well as the lingering love and yearning in her eyes. But I know that I am not worthy of such a good person, so I just thought that it would be best if he could meet someone who is truly worthy of him. Speaking of which, I would be blamed for being arrogant. If I hadn't been in my mother's, as I mentioned before, my mother will not take the initiative to find the Hua family and propose a kiss. Fan Kinjao finally understood why he decided to get married in ways. It turns out that the Miss Wu family came here just to disturb the marriage. Fan Kinjao. It's really hard for you to put a basin on your own head. My brother doesn't know about this. How can Miss Wu know that my brother doesn't like her? I think that with my brother's character, he will fall in love with Miss Wu at first sight. In the last life, my brother was too tired. Even until death, I never truly lived for myself for a single day. Fan Kinjao certainly hopes that his brother can find his own happiness. In this way, even if the brother does not feel sorry for himself, someone will feel sorry for him on his behalf. Can I really do this? Wu Kaiozeo felt like a big pie fell from the sky, which made her a little confused. As long as Miss Wu is willing, she can do it. My brother will be returning to the city in a few days. If Miss Wu is free, she can come to Hua's house more often. I believe that my brother will like Miss Wu. Wu Kaiozwo nodded hurriedly. Okay, I'll go and play with you then. Fan Kinjao smiled when he saw Wu Kaiozeo happy. Now she is really looking forward to her brother coming back so that she can get married as soon as possible. Downstairs, there was suddenly a conversation. Although the speaker obviously lowered his voice, Fan Kinjao still felt extremely familiar. I still have some things to do, so Miss Wu will go back to her private room first. My grandmother is not a reasonable person. Miss Wu can just say whatever she wants. There is no need to be so restrained. With Fan Kinjao's help, Wu Kaiozeo felt that he was resurrected with full blood and became a good man again. He immediately nodded in agreement and walked towards Yajian with long strides. Originally, she didn't have any hope, so she wouldn't strive for anything. But it's different now. The princess is right. How will you know if you don't try? Fan Kinjao looked at Miss Wu's head held high and smiled slightly. Hunted to watch Miss Wu enter the private room, she retracted her gaze and went down the stairs in search of the sound. At the corner of the stairs on the first floor, Mrs. Zhao and Zhao Jianjia were discussing with the guy from Ways. I heard that the Hua family came here to listen to books today. I don't know which private room it is in. Can I ask this guy to help me? Ask around. The waiter was obviously in a dilemma. Although we are Washi, we can't divulge information about our guests at will. Seeing this, Mrs. Zhao quickly took out a piece of silver from her sleeve and said, I just want to know which private room the Hua family is in. Other things have nothing to do with you. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 550. Chapter 550. It depends on whether she will give this face. Xiao Er looked at the silver in Mrs. Zhao's hand, still a little shaken. Zhao Jianjia quickly said, what this little brother doesn't know is that the eldest young master of the Hua family and I were childhood sweethearts, but we never thought that now there is someone who wants to get there first, so I asked this little brother to take pity on me. Hearing this, the waiter took the money and said, let me go to the counter and ask. You just wait here. Mrs. Zhao's face was happy and she nodded in agreement. After the waiter left, Mrs. Zhao held her daughter's hand and said, I spent a lot of money to find out that Mrs. Hua's blind date was here for Hua Fenning today. If it happens today, you are completely hopeless. Zhao Jianjia nodded, his face not very pretty. She originally thought she would find a husband's family that was better than the Hua family, but after a lot of choices, no one caught her eye. Seeing that she was getting older and older, if she passed this year, I will take the initiative to be a concubine next year, fearing that others will dislike me for my age. But looking at the Hua family today, Fan Qinjiao is about to marry into the royal family. When Fan Qinjiao really gets married to the prince, the Hua family will definitely be in good shape. Mrs. Zhao comforted her daughter, as soon as we entered, you lied and claimed that you were already Hua Fenning's. Anyway, you and Hua Fenning were engaged, so it was natural to say this. Zhao Jianjia bit her lip, I'm just afraid that Fan Qinjiao will do something bad. Had it not been for Fan Qinjiao last time, she would have been the eldest mistress of the Hua family now. This is a matter between Hua Fenning and you. Even if Fan Qinjiao knows medicine, so what if we just release the news that the Hua family deliberately confuses right and wrong? The people in the city will naturally be suspicious. Then Fan Qinjiao, how can someone who is about to become the crown princess dare to make a big deal out of things at this time? In this case, Fan Qinjiao has to bite the bullet and recognize me as sister-in-law. Zhao Jianjia felt very comfortable whenever she thought that Fan Qinjiao would call her sister-in-law no matter what when she saw him. It was Fan Qinjiao who was standing on the stairs, looking at the proud smiles of Zhao's mother and daughter. She felt sick and wanted to vomit. It's really hard for the Zhao family's mother and daughter to risk even their daughter's reputation in order to squeeze into the Hua family. Of course, Fan Qinjiao couldn't just watch the Zhao family's mother and daughter succeed in their scheme, so he quietly returned to the third floor while the Zhao family's mother and daughter were still snickering. It was Ninghan who was guarding the door. Seeing that his young lady looked bad, she hurriedly came over and asked, Miss, what's wrong? If Fan Qinjiao wanted to succeed, he had to get ahead of the Zhao family's mother and daughter. Fortunately, today's private room was reserved in the name of Miss Kong's family. Even if the waiter wanted to investigate, he would still have to spend a lot of effort to find out. Go out through the back door. Remember not to disturb anyone. Go to the Sun Mansion immediately to meet Mrs. Sun's wife and tell her that the Zhao family's mother and daughter are also here. She will understand the rest. Fan Qinjiao warned carefully. Well, fortunately, it's not too far from Sun's house. If we hurry up, we can still make it in time. Ninggan also didn't expect that the Zhao family's mother and daughter were here. Although the young lady didn't explain, she was also extremely resentful. Today, she was going to marry the eldest young master. How could the Zhao family's mother and daughter come here in good order? What? Thinking like this, Ninggan didn't dare to delay, so she hurried downstairs and walked to the back door. Fan Qinjiao glanced along the stairs in the direction of the first floor, and then pretended to be nonchalant and walked to the private room. Coming to muddy the waters on the day of her brother's wedding proposal was a great plan for the Zhao family's mother and daughter. But if the Zhao family's mother and daughter want to succeed, it also depends on whether she can give them this face. In the private room, Wu Qiuzao changed his mood and was chatting happily with Tao Yuxian. When Fan Qinjiao came in, he saw Wu Qiuzao saying something to his grandmother, which made her smile. Tao Yuxian came from a scholarly family, but the Hua family she married into was a family of military commanders. Tao Yuxian has long been accustomed to the fact that his husband, son, and grandson are all straightforward and will dance with guns and sticks when they disagree. Of course, he will not reject Wu Qiuzuo's straightforwardness. Tao Yuxian even felt that a woman with such a temperament would be more suitable to marry into the Hua family as a daughter-in-law. If you really find someone who is well behaved, don't scare him to death with the reckless behavior of those reckless people in the family. As a result, Kong Qingying, who had been very active just now, was a little unable to speak. The few times he wanted to speak, he was directly interrupted by Fan Qinjiao. Seeing that the teacup in front of Tao Yuxian was empty, Kong Qingying took the initiative to pour tea again. Fan Qinjiao saw it and took the teapot directly from his hand. Kong Qingying was speechless, and the smile on her face was a little stiff. How can I bother the crown princess to do these menial tasks? Fan Qinjiao said, there is no need for me to take action against outsiders, but it is my job to serve my grandmother. Since the Miss Kong family is a guest, I cannot let the Miss Kong family interfere in the affairs of my Hua family. Originally, today's protagonist is Miss Wu, so since she is a foil, she should act like a foil. Even she can't declare her troops and seize the throne, so it's not her turn to turn against the guest and take the lead. Hong Qingying. Does the crown princess always speak so directly? This is basically like raising your fist and saying hello directly to your face, you can't even dodge it. Seeing this, Wu Qiuzao was busy trying to help smooth things over. Tao Yuxian looked at Wu Qiuzuo first and said, I heard that Miss Wu also likes to practice martial arts. Wu Qiuzao smiled sheepishly, it's just self-study. My mother said that a daughter's home should be like a daughter's home, and it's not good to jump up and down all day long. Tao Yuxian smiled and said, our Fenning's martial arts skills are quite acceptable. When we become a family in the future, we can let Fenning teach you. Wu Qiuzuo's eyes glowed golden when he heard this. Really, if possible, she would want to marry into the Hua family immediately. Wu Qiuzao here did not attract the attention of Tao Yuxian at all. Kong Qingying over there saw that no one was helping her to smooth things over, so she could only keep her mouth shut. Fan Qinjiao heard the sound of a carriage coming from outside the window. He followed the sound and saw a carriage parked at the back door of Wei's. When the car door was opened, MRS Sun's wife walked out. Fan Qinjiao really didn't expect MRS Sun's wife to be present in person, and she was also bluffed. After all, today we have to fight with the Zhao family face to face. This kind of evil behavior is not something everyone likes to do. MRS Sun's wife walked to the back door and felt someone looking at her. She subconsciously raised her head and saw the princess by the window on the third floor. When their eyes met, MRS Sun's wife gave her a look of affirmation. Last time the crown princess asked her to find out about people who had rifts with the Zhao family, she just nodded in agreement, forgetting that her own company actually had rifts with the Zhao family. Now that someone wants to tear off the faces of the Zhao family's mother and daughter and stomp them on the ground, of course she has to do it herself and must not take advantage of others. End of this chapter.